Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name's Kobe. Most of you know me as Kobe from the podcast. And today I'm going to provide you with my top 10 Own the Moment Rumble Heroes currently by value on the NFL All-Day Marketplace. And in these top 10, I cover a number of different positions, but most importantly, these are all players who can really factor in as heroes kind of week in, week out. Okay, what I'm looking for here is someone that you could say purchase and plug in as your hero all season long for the most part and feel pretty good about it. And the lowest priced one available right now is Kirk Cousins. And I've mentioned Kirk Cousins on a number of videos for good reason. Okay, he always produces. He has the potential to pop on any given week. He's got some great targets to throw to, and I just like his potential this particular season with a new coach who's got more of a throw-first attitude. Kirk Cousins could really go off this year. He's at $77 on the marketplace, and just so you understand how good he is, last season he finished higher than Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, and Najee Harris for fantasy points in the PPR format, which is what OTM Rumble is. So you've got guys out there who are desperately trying to pick up a Jamar Chase, thinking that would be a great hero to have. Nothing wrong with Jamar Chase. He's not going to make my list. I'll give you a spoiler there. But you can have him and expect, certain weeks for him to pop and give you a great return. But week in, week out, he doesn't have the consistency that a Kirk Cousins has. At number 2, I've got Mark Andrews. And this will be the only tight end who makes my list. Because for me, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, you can even add Darren Waller, really. They all have pretty much the same ceiling, okay? All of these guys have the potential to pop on any given week, and their floor is not, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible either. Again, if you're on a budget, or if you happen to have already cracked a Mark Andrews, there's nothing wrong with plugging Mark Andrews into your hero spot on your roster, because this year specifically, he should be the number 1 target for Lamar Jackson, which he was last year. But more importantly, with Marquise Brown gone now to the Arizona Cardinals, he should even get an increased target share. So once again, I expect him to be the number 1 tight end in fantasy. And that's the same idea for Own the Moment Rumble. So I really like Mark Andrews. And right now he's at $95. It's a fantastic deal for a tight end if that's what you're after. At number 3, I've got Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara is significantly undervalued. Okay, significantly. We're talking about a top 5 fantasy football talent, really. Right now, he's at $115. If you play fantasy football, and you've been playing it for a few years, you're not going to forget the fact that he won a lot of people's leagues. He had me in the running that particular season. In 2020, he had a 6-touchdown performance in a single game. That kind of ceiling is what wins you a week on Own the Moment Rumble, which is all you really want. If you can win 1 week this particular season, you're probably going to feel pretty good about it. So having Alvin Kamara at $115, it's ridiculously cheap, but it comes with the warning, and that's the reason he's at $115, is because for the longest time, people thought he may not start the season due to suspension. That's not going to be the case now. His, assault and battery case has been pushed back to, I think, late October. Probably won't have any kind of a result until into November, maybe. So until that case is completed, chances are the NFL is not going to issue a suspension. So he's going to start the season as, one of the top targets for the New Orleans Saints. A very good offense with a number of different targets now. And people are looking at that like maybe it's a negative. I don't see it as such. To me, it just means that Alvin Kamara is going to have more room to run, more room to maneuver when you've got actual threats on the outside that can spread the defense a little bit. Love Alvin Kamara. I personally picked one up because early on in the season, it wouldn't surprise me if he's one of the top performers. So $115, fantastic. Next, I got Deebo Samuel. And Deebo Samuel, if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp last season, then Deebo Samuel would be the top performing wide receiver in PPR fantasy on his particular team this season. If it wasn't for what Cooper Kupp did last season, Deebo Samuel, everyone would have been talking about Deebo Samuel and the fantastic season that he had, but it got overshadowed by the Triple Crown performance of Cooper Kupp. Deebo Samuel is a steal. Right now he's at $130. He is a steal, right? Since signing the contract, there's no worries. He's going to have to do whatever Shanahan wants him to do, and he will be the key piece of that offense. It is a bit of a downgrade to go to Trey Lance, but that just means they're going to have to use Deebo Samuel more, in my opinion, to keep things going. So I love Deebo Samuel, especially for the price. Fantastic pickup. He's my number 4. At number 5, I've got Dalvin Cook, and this brings in another consideration. So first of all, Dalvin Cook, fantastic running back, dual threat back. He's got that home run, big play potential on any time he touches the ball. So for something like OTM Rumble, where you're slotting him in specific weeks, maybe against specific matchups, he's fantastic to have. The additional bonus with Dalvin Cook is that he doesn't have a common. And this is huge because this means there's a scarcity factor there. The availability is smaller. So on weeks that you choose Dalvin Cook, there are only X number of people who can choose him as well because there isn't a common available. You don't have that mass market availability. So other people will probably be choosing different players as their heroes. If Dalvin Cook goes off, that gives you a huge advantage against all of those people that don't have one or don't obviously have a common because there isn't one. So that makes him have additional value as a result of that. And that's why he's made my list. He's currently at $158, which is a fair price. Then I've got Cooper Kupp, and it's for obvious reasons, right? He was a Triple Crown winner. He's Matt Stafford's favorite target. He's on a high-powered offense with a great defense that tends to get turnovers, which puts the offense back on the field more often. Cooper Kupp's just fantastic, right? Fantastic. He's currently at $174. He's gone up a bit from, maybe the last month. He's gone up a fair bit, but still at $174. That's still a good price. That's still great value for what you're getting. So he's my number 6. Number 7, I got Austin Eckler, and I've talked about Austin Eckler before. Easily one of the top 3 PPR running backs, really. He's on that great offense with the LA Chargers in the AFC West, which should have a number of shootouts. He should be utilized a lot, right? So there's the opportunity for some really big games with Austin Eckler, and again, that's what you want. Just like I was talking about with Alvin Kamara, it's got the same sort of feel here, except that Eckler's not looking at a suspension. Okay, so you're paying for that. He's up to 203. Next, I've got Davante Adams, and this falls into the same sphere as Dalvin Cook in that Davante Adams doesn't have a common. So once again, you've got this scarcity factor, right? You've got this opportunity where you can play literally the top wide receiver in football. The only gamble here is that he's now on a new team. He's with the Las Vegas Raiders. He no longer has the Aaron Rodgers connection. Instead, he's got the new connection with Derek Carr. Yes, they played together in college, but that was quite a while ago, so we don't really know 100% what to expect there. Although I still like Davante Adams because he's so good, and he's obviously the number 1 with the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 2 would be Hunter Renfrow. It's not even close. So you've got to expect the lion's share of targets to go to Davante Adams, and because he doesn't have a common, there's a chance that you could play him, someone else doesn't, and if he goes off, you have that advantage. And then I've got Patrick Mahomes. Again, it's pretty obvious, right? He's one of the best fantasy performing quarterbacks every single year since he started for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's got a great floor. It's unlikely you're going to have a bad week with Patrick Mahomes. So this is another one of those moments where you can just plug in as your hero every single week except for the week that they're on bye and find somebody else for that one week. But otherwise, you can feel pretty good about having Patrick Mahomes as your hero every week. He only has the single best safety net in football in Travis Kelce. I mean, you talk about a sure-handed tight end, big target that knows how to make himself available whenever things go wrong. That's Travis Kelce. So Patrick Mahomes is a no-brainer here. He's not cheap, okay? You're paying for that. You're paying $390 to have that peace of mind. In some cases, maybe you look, somewhere earlier on the list and maybe get a couple of players for the price of Patrick Mahomes, maybe even 3 players for the price of Patrick Mahomes. But if you really believe in what the Kansas City Chiefs do, you think losing Tyreek Hill isn't that big a deal, then Patrick Mahomes is a pretty safe play. And at number 10, it's Tom Brady. And this is, again, pretty obvious. And for the same reasons I got Patrick Mahomes on the list, is that you can plug in Tom Brady and not feel bad about it for the entire season. Find one bye week replacement and you're good. And the reason Tom Brady is solid here is not because he's the GOAT to many of you. It's because he's essentially the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He calls his own plays, and Tom Brady's got an ego, so he calls himself a lot. He likes to throw the ball. Even when they involve Leonard Fournette, there's quite a lot of passes to Leonard Fournette now. It isn't just hand the ball off to him because Brady wants his stats, and he piles up the stats every single season. He also has a ridiculous group of wide receivers to throw to. It doesn't matter where he looks, he's going to find himself a sure-handed wide receiver in Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, or Julio Jones. He even has a couple of additional slot receivers with serious talent. He's got top targets. Brady's going to be a safe play. He's number 10 because of price. That's what it is. It's $978. He is not cheap. I was tempted to leave him off the list and choose somebody that's less expensive, but I figure, whatever. A lot of people purchased Brady quite a while back when he wasn't this expensive. So there's a good chance he's already in your collection. And if he is, you're set for OTM Rumble. You really are. And that's my top 10. Now, before I start getting hate comments about some of the players I left off, I want to go over why I left off some of these players. So I'll begin with two of the top receivers, and that's Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase. I already mentioned Jamar Chase earlier in that he wasn't as fantastic as maybe a lot of you think he was. Granted, he had an amazing rookie season, but that's compared to the other rookies. He was still a standout player overall, but the real issue here when it comes to Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase is, one, Tyreek Hill, switch teams, some risk there. But more importantly is both of these players share the field with another tier 1 wide receiver. Jamar Chase's case, it's T. Higgins. Tyreek Hill's case is Jalen Waddle. So you never know which receiver is going to be the one that gets targeted, which receiver is going to face the better cornerback that particular game, so the other receiver is the one that benefits. There's some risk there, so I don't really see them as just plug and play and forget about it. You want to play the matchups. You want to look for who's going to be marking them that next game. So I left them off the list. There are a bunch of other wide receivers that you could consider here, but the reason they didn't make this list is primarily due to value. Okay, so when you look at who I have on the list, it's either a result of the cost of that particular moment or the scarcity of that particular moment, say like a Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is on the list because, number one, he's a fantastic wide receiver. Number two, he's going to be the centerpiece of that offense. And number three, there's no common. So you've got an advantage against a lot of the community who's also playing OTM Rumble. So there are some players like Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Cortland Sutton, Michael Pittman Jr., like pretty much any number one wide receiver on a good offense is a viable hero on Own the Moment Rumble. They just didn't make my top 10 because they don't have the same value or scarcity as some of the others. That's why they're off the list. If you have them already, by all means, play them. Look for the matchups. Put them in because you're going to have advantages there. But if you just have to buy a moment, you're not sure who you should get, look to my list as a guide. And that's why they're off it. I also looked at Brady's targets, and I didn't want to make a prediction as to which one's going to be the best. You can't. And it's Brady. He'll throw it around. He'll pick his favorite from practice that week. If someone's really connecting with him during practice leading up to the game, that'll be the guy he goes to in the game. So I didn't want to pick Godwin. I didn't want to pick Evans. I didn't want to pick Julio Jones. I just left him off because there's too much gamble there. Even though fantasy football is a gamble, that's just taking it too far. So they stayed off the list. There are a number of quarterbacks I left off the list. So Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. All of these quarterbacks come with a little bit of risk. Or they don't offer much better value than another quarterback on the list. So for instance, Matt Stafford, I put him on par with Kirk Cousins, really. They both have the same potential to go off on any given week. So why would you pay up for Matt Stafford, who's also injured, by the way? He's not 100% right now, when you could get Kirk Cousins for $77. Doesn't add up. You've got quarterbacks that use their feet. So you've got the Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, right? These kind of quarterbacks. Kyler Murray just signed that big contract. Why wouldn't I put him on the list? Well, his number one target, DeAndre Hopkins, is suspended. So we don't know really what to expect there. There's some risk there. Jalen Hurts, he looked great last year, and now he's got the addition of A.J. Brown, so you might be really tempted. But, again, you don't quite know until you see it happen with these players. Jalen Hurts still has some off games. I don't want to play him every single week. It's not that kind of a player to just roll with and own the moment rumble. You want to look for the matchup. So left him off the list. So they all have this. Russell Wilson, one of the, like when he's on and when they let him cook, he can put up massive fantasy numbers, but now he's on a new team with new targets. Granted, the Denver Broncos, who I'm a fan of, have a great receiving core in theory, but until we see it, we don't know. So I wouldn't say go out and buy one and make him your hero until you know, right? So that's why none of those guys are on the list. That's why I left them all off. When you look at the other tight ends, so you got Travis Kelce, who I've already said is the best security blanket in football. And George Kittle, who, if you watch one of my previous videos, was the number one fantasy performer on a particular week last year. Why didn't they make the list? Because to me, they have the exact same upside as Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews costs less. It's that simple. I actually think Mark Andrews will probably finish as the number one tight end this year in fantasy. So I actually think over the season, Andrews could be better. Now, on any given week, any one of those tight ends could have the best fantasy performance that week, but do you want to pay more for the same probability? No. So you might as well buy Mark Andrews. If you already have them, fine. Go ahead, play Kittle. Go ahead, play Kelce, right? They're great. They're fantastic. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying for the money, if you don't have any of them and you want to buy one, buy Mark Andrews. So these are why I've passed up on a number of these players. That's why. So before you bash me in the comments, understand that I put some real thought into this and really looked at the values and the potentials and the scarcity and went that route. Now, before I get to 3 legendary moments that if you've got the bank for them or you were lucky enough to crack one, will give you a significant statistical advantage at Own the Moment Rumble, I want to remind all of you that Pro Sports Podcasters, we've set up our Discord. We've now got a Discord set up. PSP Insiders. So if you're on Discord and you want to join the conversation and you really want to get a little more in depth as to why we pick specific moments, specific players, why we're targeting certain groups, which players you want to stack. We're talking about this every single day on the Discord now. I'm loving it. We've already got a great community. We've only been running for a few days, and already there's a number of real diehard fans, both of the channel and of NFL All Day and of Own the Moment Rumble. So if you've got a conversation that you want to spark up or any questions you want answered, it's a great place to go. Now let's talk about the 3 legendary moments that can give you the greatest statistical advantage on Own the Moment Rumble this season. As it stands right now, we've got 3 players that do not have rares, that are also legendary moments that could potentially be the number one fantasy performer on any given week this season. And it begins with Jonathan Taylor, the obvious one, because he is the consensus number one pick in PPR fantasy this season. And his floor is high, okay? It's unlikely you're going to have bad weeks with Jonathan Taylor. You will have some fantastic weeks with Jonathan Taylor, potentially top performing weeks with Jonathan Taylor, and that additional 25% is going to be a significant number. So sure, he has a common now, and it's criminally underpriced. If you don't have one, go get one. But if you're able to buy a Jonathan Taylor Legendary, or already have cracked a Jonathan Taylor Legendary, that's a huge advantage. And this is definitely a player that you can plug and play all season. As long as he's healthy, and it's not the bye week, you can go ahead and run Jonathan Taylor. It's also an advantage that he's an Indianapolis Colt because he's in a weak division. He's going to have some very easy matchups. So have yourself a field day if you've already got him as a legendary. Number 2, I got Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson is maybe the weakest of the 3 on this list, but at the same time has real opportunity in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins to post big games. Big games. And unlike a Jamar Chase or a Tyreek Hill, he doesn't have that tier 1 number 2 on the team. Adam Thielen is excellent. Don't get me wrong. I love Adam Thielen, but he doesn't have the same boom potential that a T. Higgins or a Jalen Waddle has. So Justin Jefferson is the man when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings. Doesn't have a rare. His common's more expensive than Jonathan Taylor right now, which really shouldn't be the case, but it is. And again, if you've already got him, bonus. This is definitely someone you can play almost every single week. So he's on the list. And then the last one, my personal favorite, and if I could, this would be the player I would play practically every single week, is Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been picked by many and is the Vegas favorite to be the MVP this year for good reason. He's on one of the best teams in the AFC. He's in one of the weakest divisions of the AFC. He's a powerful quarterback. This guy's hard to bring down and can use his legs to get not only rushing yards, but rushing touchdowns. He's got one of the best reliable targets in Stephon Diggs. Gabriel Davis is now the number 2, and he's proved himself to be a reliable number 2, big play number 2 last season. Everything is looking up for Josh Allen, and he doesn't have a rare. Nuts. His comment isn't cheap. That makes it even better. So if you've got Josh Allen or can afford Josh Allen, that's a massive coup, right? That's a huge advantage. And it's one I would make if I had the bank for it. And those are the 3 legendaries that can make you a significant difference, right? Give you a little bit of an advantage on Own the Moment Rumble. There are other rares I did not mention on my list that, again, have that scarcity factor that can give you a slight advantage, but they're not as appealing as the players I've mentioned. If there's anyone else that you think should be on this list that I left off this list, let me know in the comments. Let's hear it. Maybe you're right. Maybe I overlooked somebody. I want to know who you're thinking about adding to your collection, who has you excited to be your hero and Own the Moment Rumble. And like I said, if you really want to ask even more questions and get a little more in-depth information, check out the Discord. Until next time.